And this morning, I want to talk about reframing our thoughts a bit. And yes, Susie, we're going to talk about choosing the right frame of mind. Byron Katie is very well known in the spiritual community. Many, many years ago, she was so deeply depressed she could not get up off the floor. She couldn't live her life. She was depressed about every single thing. And the problem was that she, from anyone else looking in, she had a beautiful life, or what could have been a beautiful life, but she had convinced herself through her negative thinking that she didn't. And she was so bad, she had even been committed to a place for mental health and a mental hospital. She said she was on the upstairs on a bare floor, a wooden floor. They had even put her away from everyone else. She was so depressed. She saw a roach crawling across the floor, and she all of a sudden had an epiphany. She didn't know where it came from, except that she knew that God must have given it to her. And all of a sudden, the light came on for her. And she realized the only thing that was keeping her in this state of being was her own thoughts. Her own thoughts. Can you believe it? It was the way she was thinking about everything. And the moment she decided to change her thoughts, she realized she changed her life. Now that's become cliche, right? We've heard it so much we don't pay attention to it anymore. Change your thoughts, change your life. But it's true. It is absolutely true. And she even has become so successful. She teaches all over the world now. And what she teaches is a method to take the thought, okay, whatever the thought is, say everybody hates me, and you just keep running that over and over and over in your mind. I've never done anything good. And she advises, take that thought and question it. And the first question is it true? Well, of course it's not true. How can I know it's true or not true? And just go through this process and question every single thought. How many of you in your younger lives were taught that you could change your thought and change your life? Not many of us, right? We were just taught to move on along with life and just get over whatever it was, right? Anybody ever had a real epiphany where they discovered they could change their thoughts about something and change their life? Anybody have an epiphany they wanted to share? Rick? Pick up the mic, Rick.
I was fortunate. I grew up without a father. He died when I was young. And I was fortunate to meet people along the way that had things to say. A guy named Stephen White was an employer of mine, and he took an interest in me. And he realized that I was afraid of what I was a manager of a really nice restaurant, and I felt intimidated by doctors and lawyers and powerful people with papers on their names. And he took me out, and he had me go through some exercises. One of them was riding an elevator. And he said, when you're on the elevator, turn your back to the door and look at people in the eyes and ask them what they're doing here. Are they here on business? Are they here on pleasure? And I realized at that point, when I got off the elevator, he asked me, he said, what did people do? I said, well, they backed up. And he said, they are as afraid of you as you are of them. And if you're smiling and nice, they'll be smiling and nice back. And I realized at that point, I had nothing to worry about powerful people, doctors and lawyers. They're in my business, and I'm here to take care of them. And it really changed the way I addressed my life.
Pamela shared that when she was 7, she was at an arcade with family and children her age and cut her foot. It was dark. She didn't see she was bleeding, and then the moment, and it didn't hurt until she knew she was. Sorry, Marquis, I put my arm on that again. Started hurting the moment she knew that she was cut. Interesting, huh? It is interesting. Our thoughts do matter. I was reading this week, and it was actually an old article by a man named Scott Kallichstein. He's also a Unity teacher. He doesn't teach at one specific church, though he goes to many. He did change his name to Scott Grace a few years ago. But it was a time similar to this, and he was leading a meditation group, and it was a time when there was a lot going on in the world to be upset about. And in this particular group, one woman was offended because she felt like she was deeply in grief. She was offended because he was happy, and he was encouraging them to be joyful and happy too. And so it caused him to pause and stop. He said, "I mean you no disrespect at all. I don't mean to minimize your pain and your loss, but it really doesn't help for us to be martyrs." He says, "I've been down that road. I've been way down that road with grief and pain for the world, and I've been a martyr. I know how that feels. I've been a martyr too, this life and others, and kind of brought that in with me. And we're not meant to be martyrs for a cause. Our suffering and our pain does nothing to help the world. Did you know that? Our remaining sad and as if the worst thing in the world has just happened to us." He went on and explained to the woman, he said, "It's like we're in a movie theater and there are 2 different movies going on. And in this one movie over here, it is sad and fearful and frightening and worrisome." And he said, "It is, trust me, it is standing room only right now." You get what I'm saying? There are enough people right now that are fearful and mad and angry and worried that the world won't ever be good again. That there's standing room only. He said, "I'm going to let you keep that room and watch that movie. I'm going over here to this other movie. And there's something joyful and peaceful and loving and kind and optimistic and positive. I'm going to go over there and watch that movie. What about you?" I just loved the symbolism of what he shared. I just loved it. And how many different times in our lives it has been standing room only when it comes to the trauma and the pain. And trust me, it does take some time to work through the grief and the disappointment. Of course it does. But you are not adding to the light of the world if you're staying in the pessimism and the worry and the anger. It's not helping at all. The best thing you can do is what we did earlier, is when we let our light shine and we decide that we're going to be joyful and kind. There's another Scott. His name is Scott Aubrey. He's a minister with Centers for Spiritual Living. Used to be Religious Science. He says, "I was traveling once on a business trip. After checking into the hotel, I decided to stay in for the evening and ordered room service. While I waited for my dinner, I went online and bought a couple of things, and my shopping didn't go well. They didn't have what I wanted, and what they did have cost a lot more than and it would take longer to be delivered than I ever expected. And before I could complete the order, the internet went down. That irritated me a bit, so I turned on the TV and discovered it wasn't working either. I called down to the front desk to complain about it, but no one answered, so now I was getting in a really bad mood. Then room service brought my food up, and the wrong order was brought. Said by this time I was not very pleasant to be around. I can imagine some of his congregants would have been surprised to have been around him too, had he been in that mood. So he says, hungry, angry, feeling disconnected, I decided all that was left to do was to go for a swim, which I did. As I swam, I began to calm down. I took time to just float in the water, feeling myself more, being back in the flow, moved to the jacuzzi, and just sat there in the warm water and actually meditated and prayed. By the time I went back to the room, life was good again. He said, I realized that the little hiccups I had experienced were not all that life inhibiting. That I'm in a beautiful centered space. My needs are provided for. I'm connected to the goodness of life. I remember thinking I should have swam first. Then did all the online room service, TV stuff. You think those things would have changed? I think they would have. I think we affect the room. I think we affect all the things going on around us. I truly do. I think that our own vibration invites in more of what we don't want. If we're being angry or we're wanting something other than what's happening to us, the sooner we can calm down and get centered, the sooner it'll be okay. And he goes on to say, and that's our teaching. And this is a powerful teaching, so listen to it. We understand that to the degree that we are centered in spirit, in the heart of life, our lives work better. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom, then all the things of life will be added. There's a reason for that. Seek the kingdom first. We talked about that in our class, our discussion group this morning. Find the kingdom first. That's why he said it. It may be the most important teaching he ever gave. Find your center first, and then go out into the world. Things will look a whole lot better to you. And you know, the nature of our thoughts can determine how we see the world, can't they? We can see it as a loving and kind world, or we can see it as a worrisome, fearful world. Either way, same world, our thoughts are the only difference. That's how so many people have changed their lives. They've changed their thoughts. Myrtle Fillmore did. That's how she healed herself. She was told she was going to die. And there was something in her that said, no, you're not. There's a way out of this. You can change your mind. Now you can imagine this was 1880. Can you imagine what the teachings were then? You know what they were. And she had something else that was coming into her saying, you can heal yourself. You can spend enough time in the quiet. Same thing that Jesus taught. Seek the kingdom first. Seek the kingdom first. Seek the quiet first. Go from there, and from there she learned to pray, she learned to meditate, and she was healed. It's what she decided to teach others to do. It's what we do here. We're not here just to build a big membership. We are here to teach how we learned what we learned. Don't you know? We learned how to change our thoughts and change our lives. That's what we learned. And some of us went through the hard stuff to do it. It may have been depression, illness, lack of prosperity, discord, disharmony. So many different things that can happen in our lives. We decided we could change our thoughts and change our lives. How do you do that? Well, it's kind of hard, isn't it? I find the middle of the night is the hardest time to change your thinking. Anybody ever found that? If you went to bed with something worrisome, that's the hardest time, isn't it? And easiest thing then is to get up for a little bit, meditate for a little bit in a reclining position, and just with every thought that comes in, just say no, no, no. And it's the same with depression, is you can change that, you can reverse it. And every negative thought that comes in, you just stop it right there. Nip it right in the bud. You just stop it and say no, no, no. One of the greatest teachings in the world, too, comes from A Course in Miracles. And it teaches everything we're saying here today. I could see peace instead of this. One sentence. I could see peace instead of this. Every time, whatever happened in your life, I could see peace instead of this. Even if you have an illness, your partner has an illness, your child has an illness, whatever is going on in your life, your partner wants a divorce, your partner died, whatever in the world is going on in your life. And I know this sounds a little trite, and we know you need time to heal and grieve.